This is a project to replace the Salon carpeting in a Safari Continental 2000. It would be the same probably for any motorhome. Normally I'd wait till the project was completely finished before I'd present it as a project, but there's a lot of work been done to this point. It might be of some interest to others. I saw on one of the forums that someone wanted to change their carpet out and they got a quote of $9,000. Another person had $2,000, and this is the usual thing that seems to happen to people that have RVs. There's somebody always waiting to take advantage of them or try to take advantage of them. There's different reasons why people would like rugs, and I understand that. On this system, the rug was not that great a shape. It had leakage, as you can see in this, from the roof. You can see in this picture here, and it had stained the carpets. I went over the carpets with a shop vac and actually a water spray from a garden hose, and probably 5, 6, 7 times, something like that, over and over, vacuuming the water out and scrubbing it and everything. And it came out not too bad, but it was worn after this many years. So I finally decided to change it. One of the reasons to do that is that people clean carpets, and at least in this motorhome, it looks great for a while, but everything that's clean simply goes down through the carpet into the underlay and on the floor. And that's what I found when I pulled this carpet up. It was like, it was clean dirt because it had been washed by me so many times, but it was still just like a fine bag of flour poured out when you lifted up the carpet. It was kind of a mess. So anyway, this shows the pictures taking out the carpet and so forth. So the first thing to do on this was I took the driver and passenger chairs out. It's a simple operation. I wasn't able to actually take the pedestals out. I tried, but they looked like they could be damaged if I took them out there on bearings, and they didn't want to release. I didn't want to force it, so I just worked around that. The small table lamp cadenza, or whatever that thing's called, along the window was removed so that I wouldn't have to work around that with the wood. So to do that, the top was siliconed on, so I just took a putty knife and carefully removed the silicone and lifted right off. Then there was bolts along the floor and against the wall, screws actually, the usual drywall screws. Those came out quickly. It's a little bit more difficult to get out the heating system because whatever genius put this thing in and put in the cabinet with the heater attached to it and then hook the hoses up to it. So, obviously you're not going to drain that to pull it out. So that was difficult. I'll change that mounting when I put it back together again. So there's a lot of pictures here, and just for interest sake, I guess I put it all down and, you kind of skip over what you're not interested in. The underlay is just standard, and carpeting is just standard as in a house. They put down a tack strip, and then they put down the underlay and then the carpet on top of that. So what I did was I just cut a straight line behind the driver's chair. What I was going to do originally was just leave that carpet. It wasn't that bad. And I didn't want hardwood up there because it gets all scratched and scuffed up when you walk through with sand and so forth on the shoes. So anyway, that's what this shows initially. Here it is pulled up. Now here it is the design that I decided to do. Now what I'll do with this, because I'll do it in multiple parts, not everybody's going to want to do this the way that I laid out this pattern, because in truth, it is fairly complex to put something like this together. Now I've got the coach on our property, and I've got the shop tools, and I just wanted to do it this way, so I did. But if I was to do this, like if I was living in it, or for others that might be interested, you could put this hardwood down very inexpensively. If you just went and put a border of material around the square and then laid the boards on the inside, this could easily be done in 5 or 6 hours. And even if you didn't have the tool, you could go to Harbor Freight and buy a cutoff saw, or buy one used and do the work to lay it down and so forth, a lot less than $2,000. I mean, the material cost for this so far has been less than $300. $200 I think it actually is at this point. And that's with oak, solid oak and maple. So what I did was work out this design, and the idea was that there'd be a square box in the center, so therefore I had to find the center of the room, which I did. I laid it out on the floor, as you can see here, and I divided it into quadrants, mainly because I couldn't keep track of it all in my head, and I knew that this was going to be a problem. So I laid it all out, marked it all out in quadrants, and then when I cut it, I could mark each of the boards and put it into place. So you can see the way I did this was I set the center of the design based on that line that I've drawn out with the perimeter border and the pieces on the side. Now, what would have been smarter to do, and I mean, it seemed that this would be a good way to do it, but it wasn't, is I should have, rather than using a center, I should have simply worked from the wall backwards, because the wall is extremely accurate in its layout. Obviously, it's very, very straight. And they're good on how they've laid out the cuts and so forth, because anything out of alignment causes them a great deal of extra work. So the wall and the border to the kitchen would have been accurate. Instead of working from the center outward, I should have gone from the wall. Now, it all worked out in the end, but I caused myself more work than was need be. So once the wood was laid down and this started to be laid down in this pattern, as you can see, some of it was nailed, the square was nailed, and then the top was nailed. But then I began to realize that this is not going to work, because no matter how accurately I would cut the boards, there'd be a slight, even if it's like a 32nd of an inch as it traveled down from one side to the other, which would cause the board to bend slightly and make a gap. So what I realized quickly was that this is not going to work. So what I did was I cut all of the wood as best, to the exact dimensions, so it extended beyond where the edging would be. I numbered it all, and then I straightened out the little bit here with this hydraulic system, which was, of course, not the way a carpenter would do it, but I'm not a carpenter. Then laid the whole thing down and nailed it. So you can see that the edges are ragged. They're supposed to be, because they have to be longer, of course, than the perimeter is that you're going to lay down. So the next thing that was done, and you can see it here just to give an idea what it looked like when edging is put onto it, or the outside border. So I just laid those on there. I can't put it in because the edges aren't cut. The thing that was kind of troubling to me was I wasn't sure how I was going to do this, but what I did was I found a way to make a track for the handsaw, and then I bought a very good blade, or as good as I could get anyway. And there's a picture of the track. You can look this up on the internet. It's simple to do. You get a perfect cut with something like this. I used a 60 tooth blade on it with a carbide blade, and then laid the track down and then cut along it, and it gave me a perfect edge. Now the reason to do that is that because it has to match perfectly, obviously, with the border that's going to go around. Otherwise, there's going to be gaps all over the place. But with a cut like this, it's exact. The thing that is missing at this point is a rotor bit. I ordered, this is probably 4 of them now, from Amazon, and I got caught in each one. Is that you have to have a bit that has a certain depth, and what the rotor bit is used for, pardon me, is we have to cut a slot all the way around the perimeter here in order to put a tongue into it so that it'll match with the board that's going to be laid down next to it. And to do that, having cut it straight, I have to have a rotor bit. So I finally have that ordered. It's not here yet. That's why it's kind of in abeyance at this point. It'll be here in a week or two, I think. But the way I got caught was you buy these things. If you were to do something like this, you have to look at the end length on the end of the bit. There's all kinds of Chinese bits, and they're good bits, but they're meant to be used in a router table. This is laid down on the floor. There's no room for end play on the bit. So if you have a nut on the end of it and a bearing and all that kind of stuff, which is how about 98% of them are, it won't work. So here it is cut, ready to be routered. Once I did that, then the next thing was obviously, I got to wait for the router bit, and to put the rest of it together, I might as well change the front. And what I decided to do in that is, rather than put hardwood all the way through, I'll put hardwood around the seats and in the stairwell. But I found a place that I can get 3/4 inch heavy, or not heavy, but flooring. It's kind of like a gymnasium flooring, and I thought that would work well to be able to drive and going in and out of the coach all the time, and rather than being able to put hardwood or tile there and then have rugs over it, it'd be slippery. And also it would mark up easily. So here it is, pulling all of the rug out. That's a bit of a mess, actually, getting that out, but it's doable. Unfortunately, I tried to take the little pedestal out at the front with the the white tray on the top of it. I could not figure out how to take it out. I think you got to take the whole dash out to get to the screws on that thing. It just does not pull out. So I wasn't going to do that. I just work around it. I scraped everything off here. Here you can see it with the underlay still partly on it. And here it is cleaned off and finally done. It's not just work. It's not anything rocket scientist. But if you just wanted to change the rug, then you could, at the back, the salon, you could leave this part if you had a decent carpet and do it at another time, because you could very easily do that other section in a short amount of time, or get somebody to come in and do it. They wouldn't charge more than 4 or 5 hours. It certainly would not be $2,000 or $9,000. I guess they think everybody who owns an RV has to be stupid as well as rich. So in the stairwell, I want to mount wood. I have enough wood left over. I'll go up the sides of it, and not on the stairs. I'll put the heavy rubber ice or rubber foam, whatever that stuff is. So I want to remove this older material off here, and here's what it looks like. And here it is with the all of that rubber stairwell material out. What you see on the right hand side is something I built, which is a plate out of 3/8 inch plywood, and that will be used to hold the hardwood that goes up the side. And the reason for that is that there's tin along there. I think it's a tin box on the left hand side, at least at a rear, towards the rear, because I've worked in that area, and I didn't want you're not going to be able to put hardwood onto tin very easily. I don't want to glue it. So I made this template. I'll do the same on the other side. So that's it for right now. When I get more of it done, then I'll post the next part of it and the finished pictures. Thank you.